This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusanya. Welcome to the show. Everyone exits. You're either bought out, pushed out, or wheeled out. That's the title of the book by my guest today, Brian Hill, who is former financial planner, ex-financial planner, are we still saying that? But ultimately, the founder of Pathfinders. Brian, welcome to the show.
Abraham, thank you so much. Really pleased to be here.
You're a repeat guest on the show. We don't have many of those. So you must have something really invaluable to tell us.
Or people have forgotten.
No, I don't think so. But no, seriously, thank you for making the trip and offering to share your wisdom on the show. So first of all, let's talk about the book. I really like the title. You've clearly been on the journey of selling a business yourself, and now you've been in the business now 5 years of helping other financial planners do the same. Give us the background to the book. Why this book and why the title?
Well, let's start with the title first. All credit goes to my father, who's in his mid-late 80s now. He started off on the printing shop floors in Northern Ireland and worked his way up through management and ownership. And he was owner of the Pitman Press, as it used to be known, the Bath Press on the Lower Bristol Road. And he took it through private ownership, through to MBO, through to PLC. And eventually he'd gone through all that process. And then the French came in and he was pushed out. I remember having the conversation with him when this broke, and it was the front a cover of what you might call the tabloid print press of him exiting. And when I asked him about it, he said, well, you know, Brian, you're either bought out, pushed out, or wheeled out. And I was pushed out. And that was, when was that? That was in the 90s sometime. And he has lots of phrases like that, which really stuck with me. And so we decided to use this. I've used this all the way through my financial planning career, and decided to use this for the title of the book because what holds true then and for him holds true now for us as well.
And we're in that phase in financial planning when firms are I don't think it was this many firms this say 10 years ago, but firms are now proper formidable businesses. There is wealth, there is capital value in these businesses. There are buyers looking to pay for these businesses in a way that wasn't around several years ago. And one of the points you make in the book is that, many of us financial planners haven't thought about all of the factors that you need to think about as you are looking to exit a business or sell a business.
That's right. And that's, you know what, out of all the exams and qualifications that I ever took and that you've taken, that people listening to this, colleagues and comrades have taken who listen to this, they teach us how to be good or even great financial planners. None of them teach us how to run a good or great financial planning business. And definitely none of them teach us how to sell or transfer out a good or great financial planning business. So one of the problems that we face today, and that we faced when I sold my business, is that our confidence exceeds our competence. Okay. And what I mean by that is we are highly competent at being financial advisors. We are highly incompetent at selling a financial advice business. And that's not anything bad to say. It's just your incompetence is defined by your skills. People would broadly say that I'm a very competent skier. I'm a very incompetent tennis player. And I admit that I'm quite happy with that. But when we try and apply the same methods that we use to even run a financial planning business to selling one, it's like trying to get a fish to ride a bicycle. You're kind of going in the same sort of direction. It's entirely different things. And that's why I'm trying to be kind when I say this, but not all DIY business sales are bad. But most of the bad business sales I've seen were DIY. And one of the things I struggle with really is that financial planners as financial planners, we're the first ones to say to clients, take advice, get all your ducks in a row, be independent, look at the whole of the market. But often financial planners don't take their own advice. They don't eat their own medicine. Or what was it David Crozier said the other day? He said, eat my own dog food. I'm not sure where that comes from, but you know what I mean? This is that sort of idea, is that if you're telling clients that they should be represented, they should take qualified advice, experienced advice. And when it comes to sell their own business, then maybe they should do the same thing. When they don't, it tends to come unstuck.
And why do you think that is? Is this, ego? Is this pride? Is it just that we are transferring our expertise in one domain to another domain that it doesn't really apply?
Exactly.
If you like.
Exactly right. And the phrase I would use here is, you don't know what you don't know. And I would invite anybody to come and watch us go through the process of taking a firm to sale. In all the firms that are taking the firm to market and going all the way through, if you could, it is unbelievably in depth to do it properly. Out of all the firms that we've worked with, I can tell you how many were ready to go to market when they came to us. 0.
Right.
None are ready. They might be ready for looking after clients. They might be ready for compliance. They're not ready to go to market. And so we spend a lot of time, usually 3 to 6 months, getting a firm ready to go to market. Data, legals, compliance, financials all need to be lined up and heading in the right direction. And to be fair, most aren't. Mine wasn't when I sold my business. But what we have then is businesses which are ready to go to market, and they've got all the ducks in a row. One of my clients said to me the other day, he owns a business, sole trader, 108 million AUM for one guy. He said, in 30 years, I've never known so much about my business.
I don't know why.
He said that's a bit worrying, isn't it? I said, but we're looking at it through the commercial eyes of a buyer. And if you're not ready to go to market, we're not going to take you to market until you've fixed stuff, whatever that might be, legals, financials, regulation, etc.
So let's talk about the steps. When say you're building a firm, a decent business with a team, clients. How should you start to think about this ultimate exit and what it might look like, and where would you start from? What are the steps that you take to get to a point where actually you are ready for?
So this is such a good point. And the phrase I would use with this is, never get yourself into anything you haven't first worked out how to get out of. Right? That includes business, planes, marriage, all sorts.
Hopefully not marriage. But
let's not go there. So let's work out how we can get out of it if it's not a revolving door, particularly. So a revolving door scenario is like buying or selling a house. You're going to buy one, then you're going to sell it, then you're going to buy another, then you're going to sell it, etc. Defined benefit transfer, not so much. Yeah, selling a business, definitely not so much. There's very few people who go through the process more than once. I don't know, 99%, you're only ever going to do it once. So what can you do? Well, you kind of build with the end in mind, I suppose, if we have that ability, which is, what do I want at the end of it? What do I want to be left with at the end of it? Is it a legacy? Is it a lump sum I can invest that I can ignore the 4% rule for? Is it I want to hand something down to my client, to my staff, to my family? What looks good, and work back from there. It's like the financial planning process.
Yeah.
You're going to retire at age 57 and however many months, and I want to be on 45 grand a year net after everything, and I never want to run out of money. Good financial planning conversations to have. We apply it to the business in the same way. And one of the key things of this is to look at when's the earliest I can achieve this, and then I maintain, and when's the latest by which time I have to achieve this. So it gives us a time frame, which I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he said, "Brian, I've got your book, really enjoyed it, but I'm not looking at exiting for 10 years. I said, "Great, you're a bit late." And he said, "What do you mean you're a bit late?" I said, "That's 120 paydays to get your stuff in order. What do you need to do now? Because you've got 120 opportunities to get things in order. What are you going to do?" And he said, "I hadn't thought of it like that." But I said, "But you talk to your clients about this all day long." I said, "Yeah, but I just hadn't applied it to me." It's a bit like putting on the oxygen mask. You know, when you're sat on the plane, I'm more EasyJet, you're more sort of British Airways first class. You know, and they say, put your own oxygen mask on first. All right. And so as a financial planner, you're used to putting on clients' oxygen masks for them, aren't you? As a financial planner, you need to do some work for yourself and your family and your staff. You know, when we're engaged by firms, I look at it that we're engaged by the firm on behalf of the clients. So although we're engaged by Tom and Margaret as the shareholders, for instance, actually we're working on behalf of their clients to make sure the transition works in a way that makes sense and that it's still going to be looked after in at least as good a way as they have been so far. So circling back, we need to start with the end in mind. What do you need to achieve? When's the earliest you can achieve it? One of the firms we're working for at the minute on our Exit Ready, Stay Ready program, which means we get them ready to exit for market as quickly as possible, even if they're 5-10 years away.
Right.
Yeah. They want currently they're valued at 3.8 million. Their target is 5 million. Using the deep analytics that we've done on the business, they can achieve that within maybe 12 to 18 months. And then they can maintain that. But it requires some work, you know, to do. It's not an overnight thing at all. It requires some change and a mindset change as well. To give you an example, that one firm is spending 57% of its time on 16% of its revenue, 16% of its revenue,
wow,
all of which is loss-making. So that means, in simple terms, I like explaining it in my own brain in simple terms, that means we go into work on a Monday, and by Wednesday afternoon, we've worked all the way through to Wednesday lunchtime, we've lost money. All that time, effort, all the stuff, all that time is spent losing money. Wednesday afternoon through to Thursday, 5 p.m., we're breaking even, and we make all our profit on a Friday. That makes absolutely no sense commercially. So why don't we just work Fridays? You know, now that's overly simplistic, but that is mirrored across virtually every financial advice firm I've seen, apart from one, which we're taking to market at the minute, where a sole trader has managed to, you know, they've got 2 clients which are loss-making, but pretty much everyone else, it's a real challenge.
So let's talk about these things that affect the value of a financial planning business.
Yeah.
What are those things? Why is it that this firm that you're talking about is spending 60% of their time, 58%, 6% of their time on 18% of clients that are not profitable? What are these things, these drivers that you see impacting the valuation of a financial planning business?
So some people call it a long tail. I call it a long drag, which is, you know, it slows the growth of the firm tremendously. Where this comes from, and I had it in my firm as well, is these are the clients you took on in the early days, usually. I remember when I had my first client come in and had 50 grand to invest, and I thought I was the dogs or whatever, you know. And I thought that was great. Fast forward 2 years after that, it's like, well, Tubers, that doesn't pay the bills, you know. And we don't like to let go of people at all. We like to keep them close. And that in of itself creates its own problem, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the end. And then what people tend to do, clients tend to recommend people like them.
Yeah.
You know, so if you've got ultra high net worth clients, they tend to recommend ultra high net worth clients to you. And there's also what I found is the you never know problem.
Tell me about it.
The problem is you never know. And I remember an ex-colleague of mine, Martin, saying this to me, where they had a client in there, like 25 grand's worth of investment, delivering and they were delivering a full service, 25 grand. I said, this makes no sense. He says, you never know. I said, what do you mean you never know? They might win the lottery, they might get an inheritance. Says, yeah, you never know. I do know.
Yeah.
You know, the chances of that happening are slim to none. In the meantime, you're depriving the business of your time because you can only look after, say, 100 households, 200, whatever your number is, that's the number of slots that you have available to you to look after clients. And if 20%, 30%, 50% of those are loss-making, then if you're happy with that, then you're happy with that. But it drags the value down, and all the buyer will do will look at that and go, unless we've got a way in which we can service those clients, usually remotely, very light touch, and I appreciate the FCO are looking at this in more detail, then they will mark it down. And I've seen it where buyers have said a year later, right, all those clients you sold us that were low value, gone. £1,000 or less per annum, or under 100 grand AUM, under £1,000 OAC, or under 100, 150 AUM, we're not set up to look after them, you know, at all. So we're gonna transfer them across to somebody else, you know. So it comes through a bit of a legacy, a bit of a long tail. It also comes through people not looking at the commercials of their business, you know, which I do understand. I've been there myself, that they don't look at the commercials in the cold light of day. How much does it cost you to deliver full financial planning for each client, assuming, you know, in different categories, whatever they are, what's the cost? 1 penny under that, you're paying for that client to be a client. Does that make commercial sense? Have the conversation, you know, and decide. If it doesn't, what do we do about it? And in my business, what we did was, when we went through that process, we realized that there were quite a few clients like that. And so we either turned them off completely, or for a few, we said there was only maybe 6 or 7 spaces for those clients who were vulnerable. We didn't want them going off to the bank or something like that. And we zeroed our fees completely. We didn't take any money at all, but we still provided the same service for them. But when you do that and you realize that actually that is a complete loss, it kind of focuses the mind.
And so what you're doing in this program is you are helping firms do these things that a buyer would do eventually. By making the hard choice, decision as to what to do with this long tail of clients that they can no longer serve properly, profitably, if you see what I mean. What else do you see impacting values of clients? What else, you know, I've heard about, you know, DB transfers, you know, what else have you seen in your work with firms impacting valuation?
So DB transfers, absolutely. We still probably got a threshold of about 15% of the valuation, which can have a bit of an impact, an increasing impact. And although you can have a firm that has 15% of DB transfers that goes through, and one that has 5% and doesn't go through, because of the quality of that. Work, So one of the biggest pieces on this is have this stuff checked. Have it externally, objectively checked. If someone says, yeah, we checked it internally, sorry, that doesn't wash. at all.
Right.
You're policing your own stuff. Need to have it checked externally because the bar will do it. Absolutely. I had one on the train here this morning. Contact with the bar. Can we have 40 files, please? 40 DB files.
Okay, that they're going to examine.
And we are ready for that. We knew it was going to happen because we've done what we call pre-deal. So we before going to market, we spent with this firm 3-4 months just getting everything together and making sure it was all in the right way. But to answer your question in terms of what dilutes the value, DB transfers, low average value, AUM or fees. So if you're below 150 grand average AUM, you're just going to see a lack of interest from buyers. Right. They are commercial, they are businesses, right? They're not here to do you a favor, right? So, and if you're charging less than, say, 1,500 quid, you're going to struggle. So one of the firms we're working with at the minute, the average value per household is 1,440.
Right.
Per household. Through the work that we're doing with them, we're changing that. No extra staff and no additional work required. We're increasing that to 2,790 average per household. And they get a cash injection of almost, I think it's about 800 grand into the business. And everyone can work 1 day less. And they will see no change to the business at all. Because the dilution comes from that long tail.
Yes.
That we're talking about. So DB transfers, long tail, low averages, and irreplaceable owners. Irreplaceable owners. We'll talk about that in a second. And complexity. Complexity kills deals. Now, one of the big things we're huge fans of is where financial planners outsource what they do to those who are better at it. So we were timeline users. I remember I still have a picture somewhere, Abraham, of my desk with the timeline graph above it that I would bring people in, and when they would say, particularly new clients, one of the prerequisites for them being a client was they understood how we worked.
Right.
And I would take them up to this amazing chart, and I'd show them all the ups and downs over the decades, and say to them, look, your portfolio will go up and it will go down. Don't thank me when it goes up and don't blame me when it goes down. Right? And they go, oh, that's very clever. I said, yeah, don't, honestly. So we would never get calls virtually any time when we had changes in portfolio values because of external Rachel style impacts. And so what we found is buyers like simple, boring, vanilla businesses. They love that. Because it's much easier to integrate. And before we started this, I was saying to you, one of the biggest challenges where deals go wrong is during integration. People haven't thought this stuff through, So if you're if you're running your own CIP, you're running your own portfolios, if you're doing individual stocks and shares and stuff like that, and, that is going to change. Whichever buyer, no matter what they say, even if they say, yeah, we're going to keep that, trust me, they will not. That will change rapidly, So you kind of need to let go of that stuff and not be precious about it. Which then
I'm going to put that on a plaque. And make it a companion to go with the chat. No, I'm joking, but
but that's what it is. Because I know if I'm a buyer and I've got someone else as a seller and they're using your stuff, well, I'm using your stuff. That's great. Nice, easy to transfer. No change for clients, no friction. Because integration issues come with, are the more friction you get, the more attrition you get with both clients and staff. And so I never believe it when people say there's no change. It's rubbish. Of course there's change. When you move from one boat to another, something's going to change. Just has to. And so we just need to be honest about it and understand that there will be change. But I guess sellers don't always know the right questions to ask, and buyers may not be all that forthcoming.
So replaceable owners, the point you made in the book, talk about that,
Oh dear. Where to get started with this? But the best replaceable owner, I've got one firm we've got going through at the minute. The owner doesn't know all the staff's name. It's a fair sized business, £2 million EBITDA. They don't know all the names of the staff at the minute. You know, people come, people go. But more importantly in this, he has his own entrance into the building. He has his own office that is separate, right? And this is probably one of the best run businesses out there because he is delegated. They have an internal CFO. You know, they've delegated, what's the phrase? Only do what only you can do. And so he's delegated everything to people. And so when we as financial planners, we have this confidence thing, and we just try and do everything, right? We do it 1 second, we're doing the IT. Next thing, we're choosing the CIP. Next thing, we're meeting clients. Next thing, we're writing contracts with staff.
We're polymaths. We do all these things.
So we're poly irreplaceable. Then that creates gaps because you can't possibly do it all well. At all, you just can't do it all well. We've got a dog called Tyson. He's a boxer dog, and he is an escape artist. Right, he's amazing. Just we're trying to shore up all the holes in the property so he doesn't get out, and he watches us. What are you doing there? And he cocks his head. I was having a chat with my other half about it this morning. But anyway, Tyson, you've heard the phrase "dog with a bone." Yeah. Right, so if you had a tennis ball for Tyson, he'll just look at it, and with saliva dripping down, he'll be like, as he moves it round. You throw it to him, gets it, comes back. Throw it, gets it, comes back. As soon as you give him a choice of two things, you throw a ball and a stick, he cannot move. He stays there, ball, stick, just looks at it. What do I do? What do I do with this? And so the phrase I would come around from this for myself, if not anybody else, is be more Tyson. Be more Tyson. Relentless focus on one thing. And so to be a replaceable owner, we need to give this stuff away to people who, even if they do it 80% as well as you do, that's better than you doing it. And let's make it commercial. If you're spending, it makes me weep when I read it on Phil Calvert's Life Talk Facebook group that I suggest that people join if they're not members already. When you see advisors say, I was holding on the phone for half an hour to XYZ company to do find out what a letter of authority is. Like, you're earning £100,000 a year.
Why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that?
Yeah. There's
other people or systems and processes to do. What are you doing? But it's in the nature of where people have given themselves a job. It's not, is it a business? I don't know, it's a lifestyle. But are they replaceable? Very often it takes a bit of work for them to become replaceable. And if it's any consolation, when I sold my business, it took 3 advisors to manage what I was managing. And I was like, how did I do that? But I delegated really well, I would say. If it's one thing I do is really well is delegate. And my staff used to call me Captain Slopey Shoulders, where they would, anything came across my desk, I'd try and eliminate it so it never happened again. If I couldn't do that, I'd try and automate it. And if I couldn't do that, I'd just delegate it. You know, so what I would suggest here is don't be highly effective. Be lazy. Be super lazy and just give that stuff to other people to do. And they're going to do it better than you anyway, for the most part, if you've employed or engaged people correctly.
Cool stuff. Now I want to pick you up on a part of the book that had my head spinning. So this is about the acquirer. So we've done a lot of talking about, we've spoken about the seller. Let's talk about the buyers in the marketplace. And I know there are different types of buyers, but one of the things that you said in the book was about this issue of margin uplift potential for buyers. So you see these, consolidators coming into the marketplace and they want to buy financial planning businesses but they want to make money not just from the advice, but from the investment element. And one of the points you made in your book is that if you have built what you and I would call hardcore financial planning business, where the value is in the planning, and let's say you're charging 1% for the planning and you're delivering for your client full cash flow, all of the coaching that comes with it, all of that stuff, full fat planning. And then as a result, as part of that proposition, you have also brought down the cost of platforms, of investing. Let's say you've managed to condense the cost of that to 30 basis points. You made the point in the book that these buyers have lower potential to make revenue from the investment, the product side of things, but also they will price your plan, they will value your business based not on your revenue, let's say your 1%, but on the 60, 70 basis point, whatever that might be, which might be lower than yours.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around this. So please explain.
Okay, so when buyers look at a business, they're quite rightly going to look for, and quite understandably, look for commercial uplift. Whether you're if you think of someone who's going to buy a property, if they're a professional property buyer, they're rarely going to go and buy a brand new Barrett home.
Right. Yeah.
Right? They're going to go and buy something that needs a bit of work. Depending on their appetite, depends how much work they want to do. Is it a ruin? Okay, maybe that attracts some sort of buyers, or maybe it just needs a lick of paint and some wallpaper and new floors, whatever it might be. So the way that buyers will price is they will either price at your current revenue level. So we'll put the investment to the side for the minute. Current revenue level. So let's say you charge 0.6%. They charge 0.75%. They're going to price you at 0.6, not at the 0.75. However, if you're charging 1% and they charge 0.75, they're going to price you at 0.75. Yeah. Because one of the things Consumer Duty has shown, that we need to have fair value. It needs to be consistent. You can't have, unless you're delivering completely very different services for different people, you can't have that misalignment on there. So they're not going to pay you when they're going to have to be dropping those prices. But equally, on the other side of it, if you're charging 0.6, they're charging 0.75. Well,
they're not going to give you.
They're not going to give you that.
Yeah,
of course not. That's like saying, well, I bought a house for, I sold my house to the developer for 500,000, and they're going to then sell it for 750,000. So they're going to pay me that. Of course, they're not going to do that. They're going to pay what it is today. So there can be, particularly with some professional buyers, and probably the way I'd term this is heads you win, tails I lose. Right? Heads you win, tails I lose. Which means, if I give you an example of that, some buyers will say, look, we're going to buy Abraham's business at £1 million recurring revenue. Now, if as part of the deferred consideration that we give on this, that year one, if it's less, we're then going to pay you less on that payment. And on year two, we're going to pay less on that, okay?
Yeah.
But some buyers will say, but if it's higher than £1 million, we're not going to pay you on the uplift. We're only going to pay you if it goes down. It's a bit like the when I was in the police, the caution that we used to give people, and they still give today, which anything you can say, what was it? Anything you can say will be used against you. Okay, it never said anything you say will be used against you or for you. It will only ever be used against you in a court. And so with this, with some buyers, they say, look, £1 million revenue, if it's below that, sorry, mate, we're going to have a clawback. If it's higher than that, we'll keep that. That's quite common in a lot of deals. We always negotiate that out. It's completely unfair practice. But they say, no, we'll keep that. So the key here with this is that when you have the high advisor charge and low investment charge, there's not very many places for them to go commercially. Where are we going to make extra margin on this? Because if you think about it, when you're buying multiple businesses, you've got economies of scale.
Yeah.
But if they've already swiped that out, where'd you go with that? It just makes the business intrinsically less attractive to potential buyers. Now, there is the other side of it where you have strategic buyers who are just looking for AUM or fees, because they know that if they are at, say, $1 billion AUM and they can get to 2 billion AUM, they go from a multiple of, say, 12 times EBITDA to a multiple of 15 times EBITDA just because of the scale. All right, so we do have that. But at the smaller side of the marketplace, particularly the local buyers, regional buyers, they just don't have that flex at all. So one of the areas of caution for people is to say, look, I do understand about driving down the cost for clients, albeit that I don't think clients care. I really don't think they care that much. And you could be doing yourself out of future valuation by being overly aggressive in trying to drive down these fees for clients. I just don't think it's commercially as prudent as people perhaps think it is. Notwithstanding, drive down costs for clients, fine, I get that. But from a commercial point of view, in mergers and acquisitions, not so much.
So there are different buyers in the marketplace today. If you had to put these buyers into different categories, how would you categorize them from the point of view of a potential seller?
So what came into my mind then were sharks. And but no, I don't mean it like that at all. But there are some sharks for sure. You're in the. Let's not use too many analogies on this, but you are in a sea and there's some sharks, some jellyfish. They look pretty, but they will sting you. You know. But let's put it in a more geographical coverage. So you get national, regional, and local buyers, and again, nationals will cover the UK, people like MKC, Perspective, etc. They're nationals. Regional players, strong regional players, and then local players, local buyers, maybe just starting out, maybe one or two acquisitions. Now, the interesting thing is you read about this time and time again. People go on to say, I don't want to be bought by a consolidator. I'm scared of consolidators. They're just going to rip the soul out of it. Sometimes that is true. And I have seen it. Not on our watch, I've seen it externally. But the toughest firms, toughest acquirers, those where it's most likely to go wrong, are not the nationals or the regionals, it's the local small buyers. You know why? Because they don't know what they're doing. So particularly with a DIY deal, you've got a seller, doesn't know what they're doing. Buyer, doesn't know what they're doing. Had one potential deal a few years ago where a seller said, I really want to sell Bride to this local buyer. And I said, okay, how do you know them? What do you think? And they gave me this story. I said, okay, well, we're going to put them through the process. And that involves me having a talk, although the guy referred to it as an interrogation afterwards. It was a bit of an interrogation, to be fair. And the seller wanted to go through with this buyer. And I said, look, and there was just something about the way he carried on the conversations. He wanted to deal with the seller direct. It's a really bad idea. You lose all leverage when you deal with buyers direct. And you know, you've got very little negotiation position at that point. And I said to the seller, how many red flags do you need to see before you don't go in the water? And he said, I take what you're saying, but. And whenever someone puts a word but in a sentence, it negates everything else they've said before. It's a but. I really like him. I think we can do the business together. And in the end, this buyer pulled out, a local buyer pulled out 6 weeks before completion saying, we can't access the funds anymore. Absolute, you know, and I just had this bad feeling about this particular buyer all the way through. So whereas people might be concerned about consolidators, there's bad eggs in every, what's the phrase? I don't know, in every plate. Yeah. there's always a bad egg somewhere, right? Doesn't make them all bad. But that's why it's important to go through a process. So, for instance, the way that we found when my business was sold was you go through a broker, what we call a buy-side broker, and they introduce sellers to you. Sorry, they introduce buyers to you who pay them commission, so it's restricted, sequentially. So they'll say, Abraham, go and meet buyer A. How'd you get on? Great. Didn't work out? Okay, here's buyer B. How'd you get on? Here's buyer C. Okay, it's completely wrong to do it. That's like saying we're going to have people come around the house. Do you want to sell to the first one? Yeah? No? Okay, right, second one. We don't do that. It's the best way to do it is a simultaneous where you get, it's like Dragon's Den. Ours is reverse Dragon's Den.
Right.
You get all the buyers come in at the same time with the same information within a time frame, and they have to put their best foot forwards. And they know that in a Pathfinders process, they are competing against each other. It drives the value right up in terms of the overall deal structure. But just in terms of buyers, sorry, I got off topic a bit there. There are local, regional, nationals. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly with this. And one of the things that sellers don't know is they don't know who's who. They just think
they're all,
going really well. We have a nice chat, and we think this can make this work. And here we go. Absolute worst way to do it. And in fact, we require buyers to put in offers before they meet the sellers.
Right.
So we usually have 6 to 8, maybe 10 offers before they meet. And the reason for that is, as part of my master's in behavioural science, I realised on my research that your chance of being able to work someone out face to face in terms of them as a person is no better than a flip of a coin.
Right.
In fact, you're more likely to get it right with a flip of a coin. So I don't want buyers to meet sellers until we've seen the ticks in all the right boxes, that they use Transact, or they use Timeline, that they're going to take on the staff, they're going to be above this threshold. Then you can meet them. Otherwise, what's the point? So we have a process rails to run on that we know works time and time again.
And that's the point I wanted to that I was going to get to, but you got to it. But I just wanted you to emphasize this, which is you said in the book that one of the worst things that people do is they just go and have a friendly, nice chat and friendly, nice coffee with a potential seller. Potential buyer. And you said, don't do that.
Don't do that. Please, don't do that. Stop it immediately. Buyers are professional buyers in the main. They know that if they get on well with you and they say, look, Abraham, nothing's going to change. Our business will look quite the same. We're going to have the staff. You've lost all your leverage. You have no negotiation position at all. And the buyer is a professional buyer and you're a novice seller. You don't know. They're just going to crunch the numbers, and their role is to get the very best deal for them, not to get the best deal for you. I remember being in a meeting with a buyer and seller because we're highly controlling. We control all of it. And I said to the buyer in the meeting, whilst the buyer was there, I said, partway through this, the buyer is going to say, we don't pay the most. And the buyer went bright red and said, you can't give away our trade secrets on this of how we negotiate stuff. Well, because we sit in multiple negotiations with these buyers, we know where their touch points are very often. So going to have those conversations, speaking to buyers direct and going DIY, I can't tell you how much it makes me weep when I see this, because it's, I had a message through from someone the other day, said, Brian, I've signed heads. Do you recommend a solicitor? Oh my God, are you serious? Please shoot me now. You at the very least, you engage a solicitor before you sign heads. Heads of terms, it's non-binding, but it says this is the terms of which we've agreed a deal. And you've done it yourself, your life's work, your staff and your clients, and you've done it by yourself. You've never done it before. That's like trying to get a hole in one because you think a golf ball is similar to, you play football, and it's the same sort of thing. It comes back to confidence and competence.
The other thing that I wanted to pick on is this issue about buy-side brokers and how much of an issue it is. Yeah. The way I think about it is today modern financial planning businesses are fee-based and not commission-based. So the client pays us. And you know, we've come from the commission way, but my land. But my sense is when it's flipped around, in this case, when the financial advisor is or should be the client and she's the one selling, my instinct is that she would rather someone else pays the fees. At least that's the story they tell, you know, she'll tell herself, which is, by that I mean, oh, why don't the seller, why don't the buyer pay the broker so it doesn't come out of my money? Whereas if I engage Brian, he's going to charge me some preparation fee to get my business ready, and then he's going to want a cut of the fees, which will come from my value. But it's easier if I get the buyer to pay.
So there is no imaginary pot of money that the buyer calls on to say this doesn't affect the price that we're going to pay for the seller always pays. It's the same as, you know, when you have in the old days when we sold lots of life insurance, you could sell it with commission or without.
Yeah.
If you sell it with commission, then the advisor, be it indemnified or non-indemnified, gets paid. If you sell it without commission, then the premium drops proportionately. Right.
Yeah.
It's no free money pot on this. So, and buyers use the commission as part of their capex, part of their capital expenditure. It is a cost. It's not free. And therefore they know every single time if they have no broker to pay, the deal changes proportionally. So the seller always pays. It's just, if you go through a buy-side broker under the law of agency, that broker must fearlessly represent the buyer. Must fearlessly represent the buyer. They have fiduciary duty to represent the best interests of the buyer. Now, I don't always know that they see it that way, but they have to, which is a little bit like Abraham selling his house, deciding to move to Cyprus. Or America. He's going to sell his house, and you've got one buyer to come round, and you're engaging the estate agent who's engaged by the buyer to come round, who's representing the best interest of the buyer. Are you going to do it? No, of course you're not. That's insane. Or you have to go to court for some reason. You're engaging a solicitor who is paid for and contracted by the other side. Are you going to do it? Of course you're not. It's insane. But this is what we find here is that, and virtually all the brokers in the market are buy side. So they have contracts. So this creates a restricted marketplace. First of all, those brokers won't engage with buyers, however good they are, if they don't pay them a commission, introduction commission. They won't do it. So it creates a restricted marketplace. And secondly, the variability of commission. And sometimes the reason that the biggest conveyor belt consolidators are the biggest because they pay the highest commission to the brokers. That's why. So when I went to meet different buyers when I sold my business, I rock up, have a chat, and thought, this is nothing like my business. Why? Say to the broker, why are you sending me here? Well, the meeting lasted 10 minutes. And it was only afterwards I realized, because they send me to the highest paying commission ones first, and then the rest. It creates a completely uneven playing field. You are then the product. So if you get cold called like I was today, as I was saying, outside, I had a firm, I was called by a buy-side broker to sell my firm that I had sold 5 years ago. I sold my business 5 years ago, and they say, we've got a buyer in your area. You do not have a buyer in my area, you know.
Yeah, it's really been fascinating talking to you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Okay. There's this final question I want to ask you, otherwise, before we get kicked out of the studio, which is this. So the work you're doing is helping professionalize this process of exiting for firms. But if you stand back and look on a sort of, whole scale at the profession of financial planning, where we are now having, I was looking at the FCA data, recently there is, in 2024, a drop in the number of financial advisors, a small drop, and an even smaller drop an even bigger drop in the number of firms. So in the last 5 years, we've lost something like 20% of financial advice firms, which does mean firms are getting bigger. Some of the smaller firms are selling to bigger firms. Is there anything that is concerning in this picture, in this trend of financial planning firms being sold to larger consolidators? Is there anything that worries you or that we should be worried about or that we should think about?
Well, I think to just turn that question around slightly, and my answer is that it gives great opportunity for small firms where people have been, they've been sold to a bigger firm and they think it doesn't fit, to create something really special, in terms of whilst keeping it simple, whilst keeping it not complex, to build something which really matters to clients and to maybe the local community as well. This consolidation will only carry on, and a lot of it is driven by the average age of the financial advisor and the amount of regulation that they have to deal with. It's like constant layers upon layers of simplification, if you like. Where I see this I don't think anyone sees it getting any less, but I do think it creates an opportunity for those who are commercially aware, for those advisors who want to set up small, powerful, boutique-y types of firms, not to service the mass market, that's for someone else, I think, but to look after 100, 200 households each, be super efficient, delegate where they can, and create businesses that create value for themselves and their clients later on. It creates a significant opportunity, whereas those firms which are now being sold and acquired, those are now off the market literally, and then reduces competition in many ways. I think it creates both opportunity and threat.
Fascinating stuff. Brian Hill, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for coming on the show. Really enjoyed our conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks, Abraham.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.